And away we go on the Detroit Lions News podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap. We're going to be talking about the Detroit Lions because, look, the draft came and went. We know who the Detroit Lions have picked in the NFL draft, and it's came down to a lot of interior play. Guys like Tate Ratledge. We had Miles Frazier, who was an undervalued pick, in my opinion. I'll let you know why. Um, Tyleik Williams was another draft pick of the Detroit Lions, and I think he's going to fit in real well with the Detroit Lions. I think a lot of people are missing the point on that one, especially in terms of his pass rushing skill. But we're going to talk about a lot here on the Detroit Lions News podcast. And as always, you can always follow it at Detroit Lions News Podcast on Facebook, One Pride DET on Instagram. You can follow my Twitter handle at Detroit Joe Chap and Joe Chap Sports on TikTok. You could also join the group One Pride Nation. And if you are an Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, you can get them there. All right, let's start with the Detroit Lions draft class. Obviously, this is a draft recap show. We get all into the rigmarole, and you can see the Detroit Lions have drafted Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle from Ohio State, at 28th overall. At 57th overall, the Detroit Lions selected Tate Ratledge from the University of Georgia. How about them dogs? Isaac Tesla from the University of Arkansas. He's a wide receiver, pick 70. And then you had pick 171, Miles Frazier, the guard out of LSU. I love that pick. Ahmed Hassian, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but what a great player he is at the Boise State University, and he's going to be an undervalued pick. I think he's got some upside, especially in his pass rushing skills. Dan the Man Jackson, the safety from Georgia. This is a guy who will be primarily a special teams guy. He could definitely be a depth safety when you talk about safeties. And losing at Fatima Malofanu, you needed to get a depth safety in a guy like Daniel Jackson. He could really plug and play. He's a great player. We got some highlights to show you too. Dominic Lovett, the wide receiver from Georgia, was the last pick at 244. Lovett was a hell of a player with the University of Georgia. All right, so a lot has been made into this Detroit Lions draft, how it's a little bit underwhelming, right? I think a lot of people said it was underwhelming from the source of, hey, it could have been, we could have got an edge rusher. Oh, we could have got this. We could have got this. Even a guy like Isaac Tesla, who, let's be honest, has a lot of potential, comes from Hillsdale College, transfers to Arkansas. And when you look at Arkansas, I mean, they didn't have a quarterback that could throw the ball at a consistent pace, or else they would have been a pretty damn good team because they did have some talented players on their roster. But when you look at the Detroit Lions, they did get the best athletes at their position, because when you look at what the NFL Next Gen Stats posted, the most athletic draft class, average score of first 7 draft picks in 2025 draft, Seattle was number 1, the Raiders were number 2, and the Lions were number 3, the Patriots were number 4, and the Washington Commanders were number 5. So the Detroit Lions, again, they drafted the best possible players. And when you talk about the best possible players, you talk about how do they do during the games. And, one of the people that I really wanted to highlight really quickly was, obviously we talked about Tyleik Williams and what he's able to do. When you look at his pass rush win rate, it's not overwhelmingly great. I know a lot of people go back to the whole, oh well, is he a pass rusher or is he not a pass rusher? And when you look at his pass rush win rate, it was 6.6%. His run defense grade was 88.6, which is really good. The thing you got to understand about the Ohio State Buckeyes and the way that they play, the defensive tackle for Ohio State is not asked to go after the quarterback. That's just not in their scheme. The defensive tackle at Ohio State is primarily supposed to free up the defensive ends. What does Tyleik Williams do? Both guys on his JT and Jack Sawyer both have great years. Why did they have great years? Because the guy in the middle. And even with the defense being a scheme resistant, where, look, he got 3 sacks last year, 2 sacks the year before. He gets hurries on the quarterback. He bats the ball. I mean, we had 6 in the last 3 years. but he's not asked to go after the passer. That's what people don't understand about this pick right here. Is Tyleik Williams is not asked to go after the passer. He's just not, and he shaded over the B cap a majority of the time in 2024 and 2023. He was over the tackle a couple times, so they've used him in both sets. But overall, he just does good, and that's what he's primarily meant to do. You know, I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, he doesn't have as much pass rush upside." He's not supposed to be a pass rusher. Uh, I, I just preface this by saying, go look at Ohio State defensive tackles over the years. They're not guys that pass rush the quarterback. They're usually guys that penetrate the quarterback. They usually penetrate up the middle in the quarterback. And that's the thing that you have to understand about Tyleik Williams coming to Detroit. This is a great pick, in my opinion. I thought it was a good pick from this point only. I thought he did a damn good job last year when you talk about playing Oregon, playing Texas, playing Tennessee, playing Notre Dame. You know, those are four of the biggest games of your collective career at Ohio State, and you helped them win a national championship. So obviously you're a primetime player, and your best game came one of your best games came in the national championship game. And you played Texas, who has had a couple of guys drafted on that offensive line. So look, if you go back, you look at any Ohio State player, defensive tackle, they're not asked to get the quarterback. So that's about Tyleik Williams right there. Tyleik Williams is not asked to go get the quarterback. Now, when we look at the last two picks, the two picks after that in the guard position, I want to highlight the guard position really quickly because when you look at the guard position and you look at Tate Rutledge and you look at Miles Frazier, I think this is where people miss the point. You know, when you look at these guys, you really don't say, man, nothing stands out about them. Nothing stands out about them. So here's what we have. So if you look over the past 2 years, or you can go look the whole years, there's Tate Ratledge. He's played in 10. He played 10, 13, and 14. He had some injury trouble last year. 1 sack given up, 2 hits on the quarterback, 4 hurries. Okay, cool, good. The year prior, 0 sacks given up, 3 hits, 2 hurries. Okay, I'll take that all day. His first year starting, 1 sack, 1 hit, 4 hurries. Okay, that's good. That's really, really good when we're talking about guard. Now let's look at Miles Frazier, who was a late round draft pick. I didn't think he would be there, honestly. When you look at games played, 13, 13, 14. Okay. He gave 4 sacks in 3 years. Really good. Gave up 4 hits in 4 years. Okay. 12, 4, and 8 in the hurry department. And when you look at how they did, this is Tate Ratledge. This is Tate Ratledge and his stuff. Run block grade 74.7. His pass block grade on Pro Football Focus was 77.3. True pass block grade was 72.1. And obviously he did play some time. He played a lot at right guard, so that would be right next to Penei Sewell. So if you did want to switch Glasgow to the left guard and you could fight it out between Tate Ratledge and Christian Mahogany, that's what you're going to be able to do because he did play a lot of right guard. And when you look at a guy like Miles Frazier, this is a guy who his zone passing, he's not that great, but his pass block grade for LSU was 88.0, which is really good. And you can see that, he had some good games against, some inferior opponents. Now, this is a guy you're probably going to have to develop long-term, but over the course of time, he's played 839 snaps at right guard, 785 in 2023, and then he played left guard in 2022. So he can play both sides of the coin, but you can see that he has been a guy who has year in and year in been a good player. And then he's a former tackle with above athleticism inside, doesn't panic when presented with stunts up front, which is huge and crucial, and solid footwork and balance and pass set. So look, I like Miles Frazier. I like those guys. I think those guys are going to be truly, they're going to be steals when you look at the broad scheme of things, because just look at what Pro Football Focus says about Tate Ratledge. They say the line's beefed up their already stellar offensive line with 3-year starter Ratledge. He fits in Detroit's style as a powerful downhill blocker who shows good less feet light feet and pass protection. Ratledge allowed 2 sacks over 3 years and gave up only 7 total pressures in his senior season. His 77.3 block grade was ranked above the 70th percentile. And then you look at Miles Frazier, what they say. They said Frazier was the 128th ranked player. Detroit got him at 171 on the PFF bid board. He was more effective pass blocking guards in the SEC, finishing the season with an 88.0 pass blocking grade and allowed no sacks all year. So when you got a guy who stops, look, when you got guys who can protect the quarterback, I think one thing, and we always, if you go back to the Commanders game, what was one thing that really stood out to me, to a lot of people? You were getting a lot of interior pressure. And when Jared Goff had his worst games, it was because of interior pressure. You get two guys in, the late rounds, like Miles Frazier was 171 and Tate Ratledge was pick 57. Okay. But you got two guys who could fight it out over the course of a couple years, who could be predominantly helping your offensive line as a Graham Glasgow gets older, as a Frank Ragnow gets older. And look, they're not sexy picks by any stretch of the imagination. When you talk about picks and you talk about, is it sexy or is it not sexy? What I think is sexy is winning football games. And what I think is really sexy is keeping Jared Goff upright and healthy. That's what I think is really sexy, because when you talk about the Detroit Lions, last year when they had the most problems, it was when the interior of the defensive line was really getting in on the quarterback. They're getting pushed in the pocket. And we know Jared Goff is not the most mobile quarterback. So when you can protect Jared Goff in that middle, and part of it had to do with Jared Goff playing, Graham Glasgow playing the other side of the offensive line where he wasn't used to. He can go back to the left guard with Decker, and then you could have a three-way battle for that right guard position between Christian Mahogany, Miles Frazier, Tate Ratledge, and then if you want to throw Kobe Sorsdahl in, go ahead. But Brett Holmes did say both of those guys are going to get a shot at center as a backup center. So that would be interesting, just looking at the long-term prognosis of, you're going to have an issue at center one day. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be the next day, but it might be 3 years down the road where Frank Ragnow hangs the cleats up. And when you do that, if a guy like Miles Frazier can step in at center, or Tate Ratledge can step in at center, that's probably the best ideal scenario. And I was going to play for you some highlights of Tate Ratledge and all those guys. So but here's what I'm going to say. I do think the Detroit Lions had a good draft, and I don't say it just half-heartedly. I think they had a really good draft, and the reason I say they had a good draft is, yes, it wasn't the most, how do you say it? It wasn't the sexiest draft. They could have got more edge help, but Brett Holmes said he tried to trade up a couple of times and never got the chance to. So it just goes to show you that, like, he tried, but there's not much that you can do about it. Let's hear from Brett Holmes about one of the guys who that he drafted in Isaac Tesla.
Because he had on a Lions jersey, and I thought he just did like a cheesy move just to, like, some fanboy stuff, like, and I'm just like, oh, come on, you didn't put the Lions jersey on. But he said, no, I've had it since the 8th grade, and he's like, what better time to wear it than now? And so I really respected that. But no, he grew up as a Lions fan through and through. But obviously that is not why we were excited to go up there and pick him. We were excited to go up there and pick him because he's big, he can run, he's tough, he's smart, he's a hands catcher, and he blocks, and he plays special teams. And that's why we're excited to go get him. When he came on his top.
So they picked up this guy up, and he's Isaac Tesla. And Isaac Tesla, another guy who has potentially been one of the better players, that I think is undervalued in this draft. When you look at his stats, there's nothing that stands out. He had 532 yards last year. 28 receptions. There's a very good chance this kid could be really good. And when I play some of his highlights, look, I think that he could be a really good player for this Detroit Lions. And he's not going to be asked to come in here and be the guy, but he has to be the guy. You don't have to be the guy. You got St. Brown and you got um, Jameson Williams and Tim Patrick. Like you're not asked to come in here and do everything that you need to do. That's just not the way this thing works. But when I look at a guy like Isaac Tesla, like I think that he could be a legitimate player that could help us out in the long term as well. So that's going to be very very interesting to find out. But it'll be interesting. But last year he got targeted not that much times. I mean, he look. I don't. If you look at his statistics, Isaac's statistics, it's not eye popping. There's nothing there that you're like, okay, that is what it is. He had 7 deep catches last year, 2 screen catches. And he had 277 yards on 7 deep catches. That tells you a lot about how good he is after the catch. His average depth of target was 14.3. He forced 4 missed tackles on 36 targets. So he had 23 slot catches and had 426 yards. So again, he can make some things happen out there in the with the contested catches and all that jazz. So look, and what Pro Football Focus said is this is what they said. Tesla is a big body receiver at 6'4", 217 pounds, who could help round out the Lions wide receiver room. The Arkansas product is a sure-handed receiver who didn't drop a pass in 2024. His size, explosiveness, his sure hands have him a starting caliber ceiling as a big slot option with a developmental upside. So when you look at his upside, there's a good chance that he could be a really good player on his upside. I'm trying to find his highlights that they tweeted out. Let me see. Da, 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 da. We'll find them, but I know they're out there somewhere, somewhere. Um, oh yeah. So if you want to see some highlights of Mr. Isaac Tesla, here's some highlights that I'll play for you. Obviously, I turned on the music, but he's a good player. Here's some, and you can see, look, like he's gonna get a catch over the middle. He's a contested catch, makes a good catch. And you look at him, he's got the speed to burn. When he gets away, he can get away pretty quickly. And Arkansas didn't have a quarterback that was like, oh my god, he's great. There's no Arkansas quarterback that was great, but he's making these one-handed catches. He's making good contested catches, getting first downs. You can see that he's making some really high point catches. It just shows you that this kid could be a legitimate guy moving forward, and it's a developmental upside. And he's a former Detroit Lions fan, and you heard that he went to the pre-interview with Detroit Lions jersey on. So that is Isaac Tesla, and I tell you what, he is he's got some really good upside. This is one of the guys I really wanted to draft. The Detroit Lions did draft him, and boy, oh boy, I think they're going to reap the benefits of that for sure. Because a guy like Isaac Tesla, you can only get so many wide receivers that you develop, you draft that you hope turn into something. Now, I remember where Brad Holmes came from. Brad Holmes came from the LA Rams, and the LA Rams have done a phenomenal job at drafting these wide receivers like Puka Nakua, like Tutu Atwell, like Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson for a couple years. They've really developed some really good wide receivers, and they've done a damn good job at that. So I'm not really worried about what Brad Holmes has been able to do, but it's great to see what he could do. But it's very very interesting. Now, let me see something. So, all right. Now what was I going to show you? Okay, so here's the thing about. I'm going to have someone come on the. All right, now we saw Isaac Tesla's stats. I mean, not stats and highlights. I really want to show you the guard highlights. Like, I mean, I know no one's really like about this, but I think a guy like Tate Rutledge, this is a guy that you really need to see what he could do. I like showing the highlights because it's very good. But this is from the Detroit Lions. So you can see he's coming out. It's like it's great to just see highlights of what he's been able to do. You're not going to see this anywhere else. So you're going to see he's blocking pretty just good stuff. He double teaming and all that jazz. And he hasn't given him a sack. So you can see now there's two guys coming in his gap, and he's got to make a decision really quickly who he's going to go after, and that's the key right there. Carson Beck again drops back. It was a stunt. He didn't really get too fancy. He just said, "Let's go." There's another one. I remember this one, Tennessee. Now I do remember when Tennessee played Georgia, and I watched Tennessee a lot. I tell you what, I watched Tennessee a lot because I liked the Volunteers. And when I watched Tennessee, James Pierce came on a stunt. He was coming on a stunt and it was to the inside. He had more speed, he had more agility than Tate Ratledge, and he still couldn't get in there. So, I'll bring another guy into the stage. This is Nate the Great. Nate is coming on, and he's gonna come on.
What up, man? How you doing?
What up, man? I was, it was a spur of the moment kind of podcast. I just wanted to.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Good to see you, man. It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
It's been very crazy. Between buying a house and all that stuff and getting all that stuff ready.
Yeah, congratulations, bro.
Oh yeah. So, what did you think of the draft?
Honestly, man, a lot of people are really like poo-pooing about this draft, and it's not surprising. I love it, and I'll tell you why. Is that getting Williams at the pick that we had him. This dude was like the third best D tackle overall, according to NFL.com.
Yeah.
And he's exactly what we need in replacement for Reader in the near future. And him and Mac together is going to be fun to watch. And then they go out and get two guards that are projected to go higher, and they're plug and play guards. And Brad has just redone our whole guard room in the last 2 years with Mahogany, and you still got Graham. And then you go out and get Tesla, which I know a lot of people are upset about. But, I envision Amon St. Brown, Jamo, and Tesla on the field at some point, and Laporta. Like, good luck covering all those dudes, and he's a true X receiver at some point. And then I love Ahmed. I know a lot of people don't know a lot about Ahmed, but dude, he has got a motor. He's passionate. He had 22 sacks in 2 years. The productive is there. The TFLs are amazing too. He had over almost 12 TFLs the last 2 years too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just barely learning the game, bro. He's only started playing in 2019. He's like Ziggy Ansah. He reminds me of Ziggy Ansah.
Yeah, Ziggy Ansah is a good kind of guy. Here's some. Oh, that's Miles Frazier. I was gonna play some. I forget where he's at. Oh, here it is. No, I don't know why you got to do it, but here we go. Here's some of his highlights, so that way people can they can see him actually do some stuff.
Yeah,
he's a good player, man. I like him a lot. I think he could really help this team. I mean,
absolutely, dude. Did you see the Senior Bowl move that he made on one of the tackles? He did a spin move,
that was
Dwight Freeney.
That was Gray Zabel, and that was really good. But you can see he's a tough player. He missed that sack, and he still went in off and got it. I mean, that's just some of the things that you look at when you talk about a guy that's a defensive end.
When they drafted this guy, Rich Eisen came out and literally had like a whole soliloquy for like a couple of minutes about how good this pick was for Detroit. And this is exactly a Dan Campbell type of guy, and that he's going to fit like a glove in a hand in Detroit with Dan Campbell. And I totally agree. I mean, he said he would die on the field for Dan Campbell. Like that's saying something.
That was great. It's funny because when you talk about, a guy like Ahmed, the one thing I look at is like, first of all, he's not, everyone was thinking like a Josiah Stewart, which I told people was not going to happen. I mean, I do like Josiah Stewart as a player, to be honest. He went to the Rams, but I do like Josiah Stewart. I liked Elijah Collins. He went to the Buccaneers, I believe. And I did like a couple other guys, but like the thing about it is people don't understand that when you play for the Lions, you got to set the edge and then you got to rush the passer. And that's the thing that don't
Bingo. Bingo.
They
I'm
would-
glad you said that, bro, because people forget that crap all the time. They just think, oh, we need a rusher that can just rush the passer. No, the Lions need that other guy to set the edge. That's why you see guys like Mohammed, Pascal,
Yep.
Davenport. Those guys are out there because they can set the edge, but also rush the passer. And Ahmed can do that, dude. He had a high rush grade and a passing grade as a D end. And yeah, I'm glad you said that, man, because people forget that completely with the Lions defensive ends. You have to set the edge, number one. Forget rushing the passer. Set the edge and then rush the passer.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing is people talk about setting the edge and all that jazz, and they really don't think about that. And another guy, like, I don't know if I know you probably heard it, but like there was people talking about Tyreek Williams and all that, and how he was like he's not a pass rusher. And I always tell people, I mean, you don't watch Big Time Football because you're a Texas A&M fan.
I watch all football, dude. But yes,
I'm sure you wanted to get like Nick Scorton or whatever, because that was a guy I did like, or Shamar Stewart. But Shamar Stewart's more of a defensive tackle, to be honest, in the league.
I'm not upset, bro, because you made a. I watched your video when you talked about Tyreek Williams, and I was really proud of what you said because I totally agree. Listen, the standard right now in the NFC, as much as I hate to admit it, because I think if we would have played on an even playing field, I think the Lions would have won. The Eagles are the standard right now. And you have got to be able to stop the interior rush of that offense. And so a pass rusher, I heard an analyst say this best. If you have good ends, it doesn't matter. Quarterback steps up, gets rid of the ball. Easy.
I think I don't know, man. I think it's more important if you got a guy who penetrates the pocket.
That's
one of the things that me and you were talking about, you and me, and then there's James, when we watched the Lions, right? And the games that the Detroit Lions struggled, it was because teams got pressure up the middle.
Right.
And I think if you get pressure up the middle against any quarterback, they're going to struggle
100%,
because that's the play where they're going to be like, they can't step up in the pocket, so they got to move. And then if they move, that's where they're going to get themselves in trouble. I mean, obviously, you talk about Lamar Jackson, you talk about a guy like Jalen Hurts. I mean, they need to get outside the pocket sometimes. And sometimes when you got a guy like Hutch and you're setting the edge, where are they going to go?
Why do you think there's such a premium with interior guards in the NFL? I mean, look at Dallas. They got another interior lineman. Look at the Bears. They got an interior lineman.
Why do you think the Detroit Lions drafted two of them?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because we want to keep Goff from having to step up in the pocket or get pressure from the inside.
And the two they drafted, look at the sacks they give up. You got between these two, you got 4 sacks and you got 2 sacks. You got 6 sacks in 3 years.
Joe, find me a guard. Find me a guard where they're that good in the pass and the run. How did these guys fall? Like Brad Holmes, man, once again, just like he found Mahogany last year, Mr. Plug and Play, and he would have been a starter if he didn't get ill in training camp and had a slow start. Like, dude, how does Brad find these guys? Like, people want to poo-poo all over, the defensive line, and that's fair. You can be critical of that, but dude, he hits on the line, bro, the offensive line, and that's the staple. If you're hitting on the offensive line, bro, hey, I'm totally fine with you, man. Because you look at Poles and Bears, they've missed on so many draft picks on the line. They have to go out and trade valuable assets and get money to pay the guys to be a decent line. The Lions don't have that problem. We just draft them and develop. We have Hank, who's never going to leave Detroit.
What I would say to people is like, okay, if you want to build a successful team and you want to keep your quarterback upright and you want to do this, you got to draft offensive linemen.
Absolutely.
I know it's not sexy. I know people wanted they wanted edge rusher. They wanted the name. There was a lot of names that the Detroit Lions could have drafted. But if you just look at the most successful teams in the NFL and you look at what do they do? What do? They draft these guys. If they don't work out, they don't work out. But what I was saying before the draft was like this. Brad Holmes is drafted at an 82.1% clip.
That's
an 82.1% clip. He has 6 Pro Bowlers, 6 All-Pros, and then they have the 3rd best roster in the NFL. So if you could add someone that could help you out during this time, like you're not going to have a high draft pick, okay? You're not getting Abdul Carter. You're not getting those guys, but you just got to hope that you're scouting.
Process being good, man.
Yeah,
you're gonna draft late all the time. You just got to figure it out.
And and you look at his drafts, and how could I argue with this guy? Like, how could I argue with Brett Holmes? I mean, like, if you look at last year, like, obviously it's too early to talk about last year.
Well, Mahogany would have been a starter if he didn't get hurt. He would have been a starter game one.
Makai Wingo, another
Wingo
one.
got hurt.
Leon
Vaki's behind two of the best running backs in the NFL.
Right.
Giovanni Manu is a project. Ennis would have probably played more a lot if he didn't get hurt early. And then Terrian was Terrian.
And then, Terrian, he got better as the year went on. But if you look at the 2023 draft class, I mean, look at Jack Campbell got better. Sam Laporta was good. Brian Branch was good.
And that was a bad draft class. That was graded as one of the worst draft classes with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch. Almost two all-pros right there.
You know what's funny about that draft is I went back and looked, and, people gave us a C- for
Jahmyr. Yeah. The same grade they're giving us for this draft.
Yes,
exactly.
People gave us a C- for Jahmyr Gibbs, but they gave us an A+ for Broderick Martin, which I thought was very, very interesting.
4 starters, dude. We got 4 starters out of that so-called bad draft class.
Mm-hmm.
And all-pro.
I mean, the way I look at it is they got the most athletic draft class.
I saw that. That's impressive.
That's pretty impressive, but I don't know, man. I just think it was a really good draft, and I don't know if I could actually put into words of how good I think this draft class was.
Who's your favorite pick?
Well, to be honest, I think there's a couple guys that I'm really intrigued by. I think that the Dan Jackson one was a one that I was very, very. I was shocked we got him because I think he's a guy who could potentially be what are you talking about? Potentially a guy, special team safety or something like that. Watch him, man, and I watch him. I watched him at Georgia a lot, and I think you watched him at Georgia a lot too. But
dude, SEC for sure, absolutely.
Man, you look at him and you're like, okay, this guy,
willing tackler.
He flies around, man. He just flies around.
Right, good tackle.
He does everything you need from a safety, blocking kicks on special teams and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You need guys like this, and he's a willing guy. That's what I'm saying. It's like this is Jackson Dart. Look at he's gonna pick off Jackson Dart. He's got some ball making skills. So I like
what the sack. Show the sack one. Look at the sack one where he blitzed and he sacked the quarterback.
We talking about early on. I think this is one.
No. I think it's later in the video. He was on a blitz and he sacked the quarterback.
That's the one where he blocked the kick, so that was good. Mm-hmm. But he's just. I like Dan Jackson a lot. I thought this was one of the most interesting picks of the draft because you talk about losing safeties like Efatu Melifonwu. Mm-hmm. Well, you got to replace Efatu Melifonwu. What's the cheapest way to do that? Let's go draft a guy who can play on special teams and he can play a safety.
And he's a strong character guy, former walk-on, so he's going to play with his heart on his sleeve.
You got to be something. Be a captain.
Look at this! Boom! I love that.
Man, just play the wood. He loves a hit. That's the one thing I like about Dan Jackson. When I watched him play Tennessee, man, he wanted to hit. And there you go.
Look at that. Getting inside, mixing it up.
Yep.
Here comes the sack. It was on a blitz. Watch. He'll show it.
Was it here?
I think it's
all right, but that's a great one, man. Dan Jackson was one of my favorite picks, and if I'm going to be honest, because I just watched him at Georgia a lot, and when I watched him kill Tennessee, like Dylan Sampson was off and ready to run, and all I see is Dan Jackson just decapitating them because, some of our offensive line.
I was going to ask you because I asked this in my podcast earlier when we had our draft review. Do you think he makes a 53-man roster?
Yeah, I think he makes it as a depth safety. Yeah, for sure. I think he will. I think potentially every player in this draft can make the roster. I look at a guy like I know people are not going to be they're going to be like, who's this Dominic Lovett guy, right? I love this pick too. I mean, Dominic Lovett. I mean, he's not a big name player. Oh my God, I gotta play the music. Dominic Lovett. He's not a big name player, but when you watch him, man, first of all, this is a slot guy. This could be useful for the Detroit Lions, especially when you talk about slot. He's kick return skills could be there too.
Yeah, we need to upgrade our kick returns, man. I've been saying that for the longest time. I'm tired of seeing Craig Reynolds back there.
He's so speedy, man. Like when I watch Dominic Lovett, this is a guy who he can get off and ready to go. I mean, he makes contested catches. He's not your big prototypical wide receiver. That is Isaac Tesla, but this guy, man, he knows he can find places in the defense and he can make teams pay. And whenever I watched him at Georgia, he stood out. I thought he was one of the more guys that stood out over the past like couple years. You know what I'm
Joe,
saying?
you know one of the best descriptions of his game. Shout out to Lance Zierlein. I love Lance Zierlein's descriptions and his profiles on his draft players. He always has really good insight. He said Lovitz loves to go across the middle, is not afraid. I love that because you know who else is not afraid to get hit? Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yep. Yeah, when you talk about those guys, man, that's exactly what you talk about. And it's just like it's crazy because like I look at some of these like these guys like Dan Jackson. I mean, not really a big name player, you know. He missed 15 tackles last year, but last year was kind of his worst year as a college guy. And I think that you probably got him at a value because of that, to be honest. So
I also asked this question. I also asked this question in my podcast too. Do you think that Lovitz could take Green's spot or maybe even Ronnie Bell's spot?
Oh yeah. I think Lovett is, especially with his kick returning skills, his punt returning skills, and how he played at Georgia. I think he's a guy that could definitely be a guy who could he could really take their spot. And this is what you were talking about.
I'm gonna be right back. Just give me 1 sec, okay?
All right. Yeah. So Nate was talking about Ahmed Hassan, and you could look at his statistics at 16.1 pass rush win rate. Run defense grade was 80.3. Pass rush grade was 76.9. Run stop rate, he needs to get better at that, but he did pretty good. He had in the last 2 years, he has 24 sacks, and he gets in the backfield a bunch. So when we talk about Ahmed and we talk about this guy, the reason that he could be so good is because of what he's able to do in the pass rushing skills. And that's a guy I really liked, and obviously Nate liked him too. But yeah,
who are you talking about?
So I had his stats up, and this is his stats. The guy that you like the most, and I said he's got 24 sacks over 2 years, which is pretty damn good. And then you look at it, hits on the quarterback. I mean, he's got over double digits, 28, maybe was it 29? I'm doing quick math, 24 or something. He's got 24 hits on the quarterback. Hurries, look at those. Those are the 30s. How many times do you get those? I know it's against inferior competition in Mountain West, but still, like he played Oregon.
Playoff. What was his playoff numbers when he played in the playoff?
All right, 74.6.
That's still good.
against
a Penn State team.
Against a Penn State team that has some good offensive linemen, yeah. When you do that, it's really.
I love that, man.
I mean, his best games came against. Well, he didn't have a really good game against Oregon, but that just goes to show you had a 57.3. But I just like these draft picks that the Lions got out of it, man. I'm not really how do you say it? There's nothing I'm saying like I think
you're not upset or something, or like feeling like the Lions reached.
I think a lot of people were upset because there was no names that you seen. You're like, oh, these guys are just, I think people said that they reached on Isaac Tesla, and I played his video before. I don't think they reached
Tesla. Somebody said Tesla was a 7th round pick. There's no way in hell he was a 7th round pick, dude. That I've seen Tesla play because I'm an SEC guy, and I've seen his game. He is not a 7th round pick, dude.
His best game was against your Texas A&M.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
you gotta tell me twice. I know.
that's what you talk about. Like when you talk about Texas, Arkansas. Like I said earlier in the podcast, what quarterback do you know that plays at Arkansas that's good?
That's exactly what I said. I even challenged. I even said on my podcast, no joke, Joe. I said I will send you $20 Cash App right now if you can tell me who the quarterback for Arkansas was. Nobody could say it. I barely even knew it myself.
It's like, okay, Arkansas. We know Arkansas will do. They'll produce a couple things. They'll produce good offensive linemen.
Maybe some running backs.
They got some good running backs, DeMarco Murray and all those guys.
That's defensive ends.
Yeah, and they had some good defensive ends, but I mean, I haven't. When's the last time they had? Was it Landry Jones? Like a long time.
No, it was Mac Jones.
No, Mac Jones was Alabama.
No, not the quarterback. The receiver. Wasn't there a receiver named Mac Jones? Or not?
Oh yeah, you might be right.
Something Jones. Yeah. No, it was Jones. I forgot what his name was. It wasn't Mac.
I'm talking about quarterback though. I even remember.
Quarterback. Oh,
I can't remember the last time. Ryan Mallett was a good one.
Yeah, Ryan Mallett.
But that's that last time you seen an Arkansas quarterback. Well, KJ Jefferson was interesting too as well, but not really a good quarterback either. More of like a runner quarterback.
I think they had like a sophomore freshman playing, but he wasn't that good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyone.
So it's just funny because the Lions they also invited a lot of people, undrafted free agent. This is what I was most interested in, because this draft it was talked about how I'm trying to find the Lions UDFA
And there's
tracker.
one player on that list that is special interest.
Interesting.
Do you know who it is?
Who?
Pull the list up and I'll tell you the name.
All right. I'm pulling it up right now. This is from Pride of Detroit. They always do a great job. So here it is. The Pride of Detroit. They have Anthony Titus, Ohio running back, which I like that one a little bit. You talking about Caden Prescorn?
No. Jackson Meek from Syracuse, 200,000.
Well, you know why.
I know. That's what I'm saying. There's a reason why. Yeah.
So Jackson Meeks is the nephew of Zadarius Smith. So there you go. Kyle Robichaud. Now
all the breadcrumbs.
I'll tell you what, Kyle Robichaud. That's a very interesting one because he's a beefy guy too, man, and he likes to run the ball and he's a power runner. And I remember Michigan State played him, and I was like, man, that guy is really good. They signed UDFA tight end Caden Prescorn. He's a local too. They gave him a signing bonus, so he has a good chance to make this team as well.
Yeah, you follow the ones that get paid the most money because those are the ones that they have more interest in and watching. And you focus on those guys.
So far, you see Jackson Meeks 200,000 guaranteed. Prescorn got 60,000 guaranteed. $15,000 signing. They went after edge Keith Cooper. Now I'll have to look him up really quickly, but I'll see how he does.
They gave Meeks more money because they want to persuade him to bring Zadarius back.
Yeah, bring your uncle back. That's the major thing.
Exactly.
Jacoby Keeney James from UMass, Mason Miller from North Dakota State, which is he got $28,000 guaranteed. I can't even say the Arizona State kid, but he has a lot of Fatanu. That'll work.
Leaf Fatanu, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Leaf Fatanu, whatever. That's a hard name to pronounce. They also safety Ian Kennedy from Grand Valley State. I think that could be a little bit of a home run.
Interesting.
I always say this about Brad Holmes. Every year he brings in these UDFAs, and like I'm just like shocked because a couple of them make the roster. You know, we saw back in the day it was AJ Parker and what was the other guy's name? Oh God,
Strickland.
Yeah, well, Lauren Strickland was another one. What about Sterling Thomas? You know, who played?
Sterling Thomas, who lives in Arizona. Yeah,
started at Arizona.
He's starting cornerback for Arizona now. Well, I mean, now that they got.
So there's been guys that we have literally cut that have been starters for other teams. So when we talk about Brad Holmes and the UDFAs, this is what I was most interested in when you talk about like the this team and everything. When I went back and looked at how many starters there was from last year's draft in the whole NFL, how many do you think there was?
I don't know.
25. 25.
Wow.
So that's less than a first round. So how many were the prior year, which was last year was considered a good draft, by the way. The prior year was 18. 18 total starters throughout the whole NFL draft. And these are guys
these rosters are getting deeper and younger, man, and so it makes it harder for these rookies to get a lot of playing time.
Well, it's like it always has been. Like the draft is a 60% failure rate. Like you'll fail 60% of the time, which makes it very, very interesting that Brad Holmes 82% clip.
That's crazy, man.
That's crazy. When you look at salary cap by year, like there's some guys that are going to be getting paid. Obviously, Kirby Joseph got paid, and that's something we didn't talk about early in the podcast. Okay. I'll be frank and honest. Did you like paying Mr. Kirby Joseph?
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're a guy who is second in the NFL in career in takeaways behind the great Ed Reed and tackles too, like you're on pace to, we're not going to say he's going to surpass Ed Reed, but he's on pace to be as good as Ed Reed stat wise. That's impressive. And on top of that, he's still young and he's a good tackler too. Like people forget, like this guy not only can cover, but he's not afraid to get up there and tackle you either, and I told people before the season started, I was like, if Kirby Joseph balls out this year, this last year, if he balled out, you pay the guy. And he sure as hell did. He had 9 interceptions. He had a high coverage grade. He's a great tackler. I don't know what his tackle numbers exactly were, but I know he was up there tackling too.
Yep.
Dude was amazing. Yes, he deserved to get paid, and I'm glad he got paid.
Well, when you talk about Kirby Joseph, like I just look at his statistics from last year, and like he had he's phenomenal. Led the league in interceptions. He gave up. This is what people don't understand. I think when people talk about Kirby Joseph, they talk about the interceptions and the hits and all that jazz. He only gave up 58% of the passes that were thrown at him, and he was targeted a lot. And people started to figure out, I'm not going to throw at Kirby Joseph because 58% of the time it's not going to be a catch, or it's going to be an interception or something like that. Because I mean, he was great in coverage all year. His worst game in coverage all year last year was I think it was a divisional round against the Commanders, and that was partly because
everybody had their worst game.
Well, it's partly because they didn't have the defensive line; they were just getting shredded, and you can't give Jaden Daniels time.
And to also be fair too, dude, like he was kind of manning the safety position by himself because Brian Branch for some reason had just a sophomore slump, and he'll be fine. I mean, but he wasn't Brian Branch like he was his rookie year. Like, so Kirby definitely had to carry more of the weight because of Brian Branch's, off year.
He didn't have a good year. Brian Branch did not have a great year last year, but I just look at Kirby Joseph, and he played 406 snaps in the box. He played, at slot corner. He played a lot at free safety. But having that guy in the box, people say compare him to Ed Reed sometimes. I could totally see that because he plays a lot like that. So,
and the fact he played in the box and had 9 interceptions, that's really good. That means that he's got a hell of a range.
Yeah, when you can cover people in the box. Well, I think a lot of people that they kind of dismiss Kirby Joseph based on how he plays in the box and how he plays in the safe as a safety. Mm-hmm. And when you look at him, he's playing both sides, and so can Brian Branch. And
right,
the guy you just drafted, Dan Jackson, I think he's another guy who could potentially play both sides. So it is what it is. All right, let's see what we got. We got some comments. So let's see what
Can I say something about Tesla real quick before we get to comment?
Yeah.
So you're gonna laugh at me when I say this, but I think Tesla's comp is Cooper Kupp.
I said the same thing because Brad Holmes has a tendency
the size, the bit separate, the fact that he's a high point kind of guy,
smart guy,
smart
guy.
I think that's Cooper Kupp, man.
Well, I told people before he came out, I said, look, Brad Holmes in LA when he was the LA Ram, scouting staff, they found wide receivers in the late rounds, and they still find wide receivers in the late rounds, and I look at the way Brad Holmes is drafted. He found a guy like St. Brown.
Yeah, you found St. Brown. That's all. That's all you need to say about the receiver. Like if you got St. Brown,
look at the Rams though. They find a guy like Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
Did anybody think Puka Nacua was going to be this phenomenal player from BYU? No. If you say you did, you're a liar. Tutu Atwell from Louisville. Like I didn't think Tutu Atwell was going to be any good. Smaller guy somehow becomes
Jordan Witherington from Texas.
Yeah, Jordan Witherington. That's another. No one in their right mind said Jordan Witherington was going to be a great wide receiver, and he's been really useful for the LA Rams. So, just goes to show you. Jason Fuller says, just join, guys. I don't know anything about these draft guys going on, but what Holmes has done in the past, he knows what he's doing. These guys are awesome, no doubt. Shedeur would have been an interesting backup quarterback.
I think some Lions low key would have considered taking Shedeur. I know I did. I was kind of 50-50 on it. Because Goff is 30, so Shedeur would have been not a bad plan.
Well, the problem with Shedeur is not him. Yeah. Let's be completely honest with each other. Yeah. It's not Shedeur Sanders that is the problem. Now he does have a little bit of ego, but he's just like every young kid. The problem is his dad. His dad likes to get involved in everything. Like it probably threw it for some teams are probably thrown off by the fact that this guy was, he's Deion Sanders. He'll get on Twitter. He'll say something. They're worried about something happening with that portion of it. It's just not good.
Joe, I said to some people about the Shedeur situation, I was like, there's a reason why Deion has not been interviewed for head coaching jobs. You know, like he didn't even interview for the Dallas job. Like it was a call with Jerry Jones, and it was basically probably a negotiation. And he asked for a lot of money, and Jerry's like, "I'm not paying you that money for never being an NFL coach."
Well, I'll tell people all the time, when Florida State fires their head coach, do they go Deion Sanders or do they not go Deion Sanders? You know, that's the thing you got to weigh. And, you know, my thing about Deion Sanders is he's a brash personality. We all know that, and all that's cool.
Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, if you draft Shedeur Sanders and something doesn't go your way or something along those lines,
Right.
And he starts speaking out, then you got a rift in the locker room from an outside noise, from a very popular figure in culture like Deion Sanders. And that's what these teams have to weigh. They're like, look, I don't really want I don't want the problems. Like, it was like years ago we had the Colin Kaepernick thing or whatever, and a lot of people didn't really want the Colin Kaepernick guy. They didn't want him in a quarterback room either because of the media attention that it would bring to you. It was the same thing with Tim Tebow. I felt like both those guys could have played backup quarterback at any stop, to be honest. But it's just because they brought in so much media love affair, these teams were like, okay, for a star player, we'll deal with it. If Tyreek Hill wants to get arrested by the cops and it goes all over TMZ and all that jazz, we'll take it. Jalen Ramsey wants to be an asshole, we'll take it. Some backup wants to be an asshole, no way. no
yeah,
way.
And the thing is that if Shedeur was more talented, he would have been drafted high. Let's just be real. You know, the guy has limited arm talent. He has limited mobility. You know, he came from a college where he was barely 500 in his career. You know, like there's a lot of more negative than there was positive with Shedeur Sanders. His positives were his leadership, his character, his poise, the way he did well with nothing around him. But the problem is that you've got to have more than that just in the NFL. You know, you've got to have a stronger arm. You've got to have some mobility in some aspects, especially now in this NFL, you know, and if he would have been more athletic and talented, I guarantee he would have been drafted. There would have been no question in my mind.
Well, what I go back to is like, okay, like, you know, Cam Ward, who was the #1 overall pick, I don't think he was like this generational type guy. But the thing about Cam Ward compared to Shedeur, and this is partly on Deion Sanders and what he did at Colorado. You know, Cam Ward came out and he played 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He had a good year, and he was a walk-on. He came from Washington State, so it's all good.
Right.
When you look at a guy like Shedeur Sanders, he was really beat down by his guys. Like, he had 10 interceptions last year, 37 touchdowns. That's great. That's all good. His passer rating was good. The problem is people just don't want to deal with his dad. That's literally what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's theatrics. There's no doubt about that.
And he had one of the worst times to throw. He had 3 seconds to throw all year at Colorado. And I mean, come on, Deion, help your boy out and get him some blocking. I mean, that's
it was kind of surprising how Deion really didn't prepare him better for the NFL. You know, even if the guy is flash in the pan, and I'm talking about Deion, you know, because we know what Deion is. If you don't know who Deion is, just Google him. You'll find out really quick who he is. But the thing is that's not how the NFL works.
No.
You know, like you've got to put your best foot forward, and you can't act like your shit don't stink. And that's the problem that Deion did not tell Shedeur, or maybe he did tell him and Shedeur didn't believe him. But you know, you can't go in like you're better than everybody else. And I think that's kind of what happened, and that's the cachet that he kind of decided to go with, and it bit him in the butt. Because these old school owners and GMs and coaches, you know, they're old school guys. Most of them, they're not gonna want to flash in the pan somebody who's gonna cause a rough in the locker room or something like that, or make waves. You know, they don't want any of that. You know, they want a guy who's gonna come in and love football and football only. You know. Yeah,
and I thought that was kind of everyone was worried about where Shedeur was gonna go and all that jazz, and I was like, look, a team's gonna pick him. It said everything when, you know, this is how you know it's not like people were hating on him and everything. Tom Brady mentored the kid. Yeah. He didn't take him at all.
True.
So if there's anybody that really knows what's going on with the whole Shedeur Sanders and Deion and all that jazz, it's probably Tom Brady.
And the fact is that Cleveland took a quarterback when they already took a quarterback before that. Like,
Yeah, the Browns draft was it's a very interesting draft. I like the Mason Graham pick. I like the Quinshawn Jenkins pick.
mhm.
But the Dylan Gabriel and the Shadur Sanders back to back. I mean, the Dylan Sampson one is a pretty good one. I like Dylan Sampson a lot. The running back.
I mean, if you were going to take Shador, you might as well just take Shador over Dylan Gabriel. They're the same quarterback. They're both weak arm guys that are accurate as heck, but they don't throw deep and they're not very mobile. I mean, Dylan Gabriel's probably more mobile than Shador is. It just didn't make any sense. It seemed like redundancy, you know.
But the way I look at it with the Cleveland Browns is if they have a lot of quarterbacks on the roster, if they just find one quarterback that's going to stick, maybe that could help him out. Maybe it's Shadur. Maybe
I hope it is, man. I mean, it's a good situation. He can beat out a Flacco. He can beat out a small hands Kenny Pickett. He can beat out a Dylan Gabriel. I mean, he's got a good opportunity to if he comes in motivated, which he will, and if he comes in like ready to go, which he will. I definitely think he could be the starter day one if he really puts his mind forward and just lets the game come to him.
Maybe if he doesn't go into a situation like Shadur is going to go into a situation where he's not expected to start, maybe that could help him out a little bit too.
That would be beneficial.
That's helpful too. But you know,
it is Cleveland, bro. Like they need a win. Like that fan base. You talk about our fan base. That fan base knows the pain that we have, and they have not been good since they've traded for Deshaun Watson. And they still have him on the roster too.
Yeah, it's a total garbage. That's one of the worst contracts ever. But yeah, like we look at this Lions draft class. Like I mean, I know you like Ahmad Hassan, and PFF gave him a pick grade of good, so that's good. But you know they didn't like the Isaac Tesla pick, and that I think that's going to be a very high upside pick, and it could be a really good pick.
Oh yeah, you got to look at the Tesla pick as this is not the pick for 2025. This is the pick for 2026 and beyond. Because the only knock I have on the Tesla pick, listen, let's look at the capital that was given. It was 2 compensatory picks and a third round pick next year. Brad's getting to the point where he's like, F them picks, man. We got a whole full roster. We don't need a bunch of picks. I'm going to do what I can. That's why he traded up and got rid of some of those picks because he doesn't have the roster spot for all these other players. There's no reason to.
Well, you know, the reason that the pick doesn't really matter to me, and I'll share this. Where is it on here? Let me do this.
Why are you saying that? Let me just finish real quick and say what was it about the Tesla thing? We already have Patrick, man. Patrick does exactly what Tesla does right now, but Tesla's younger, faster. You know, so Patrick, as long as Patrick's on this roster, Tesla won't be on the field more likely. Now, if Patrick goes down, or they decide to move off for him for whatever reason, if Tesla's just balling out, then that's fine. But Tesla and Patrick are basically redundancy. You know, like Tesla's a younger Patrick. That's all he is. Big body receivers that can have speed and can catch and high point balls.
So this was done by it was a guy named Joseph.
I saw this, yeah.
Hafner or whatever, and it's basically the trade chart and the value of
the Jimmy Johnson chart, whatever they call it.
The only point difference is 37, and it's because of the late third round picks that you traded last year, next year, and pick 102 is at 34.4. So you traded up to get pick 70, which was 69.82. You really didn't give up much in terms of the trade value chart, in terms of how you're going to break it down, all that jazz. So I thought it was a very even trade, and sometimes you have to overpay to get to a position you like. And look, if Tesla is a guy who's going to be any good, like if he's going to be a guy that you could rely on for years to come, you know, as a slot guy, maybe he fills in. He's a cheap option, and honestly, like we talked about it on the podcast. I don't know what you say, Nate, but Jameson Williams is due a contract extension.
Yep.
He is going to get his 5th-year option, but I did a poll on the page, and this is what the poll said. So the poll said,
oh, I saw that. Yeah,
you can only sign 4, and people picked Gibbs, Branch, Joseph. Joseph already got signed, so
I didn't know you did that poll. Yeah, I love that poll. Yeah,
and Laporta was 16%, but the guys that were out were Jameson Williams and Jack Campbell.
You know why? You know why? I'll tell you exactly why. Receivers, you can find receivers. We talked about the Rams. You got Puka Nacua, who's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's up and coming receiver. You know, You can find, look, Amon-Ra St. Brown was in the 4th round. You can find receivers. That's not a big problem now. Matthew Golden had a 4.2 speed. I'm sure that's what JMO ran. So you can find fast receivers in the draft. That's no biggie. Unfortunately, middle linebackers and off-ball linebackers are becoming obsolete in the NFL. They're the new running backs.
Yep.
You know, because everybody's running more of the spread kind of offense, all receivers. They don't need linebackers because you don't want to put a receiver on a linebacker. That's like barbecue chicken, you know. So, I mean, that's the reason why that poll is accurate, because those two positions are just not important anymore in the NFL. Or you can find talent later on. Look at Jahad Campbell. He fell all the way to the Eagles, you know, and the guys, and the only reason he fell that far is because he's not healthy. He's been hurt, you know. He's had injury issues.
Yeah.
So, you know, they took him in. They hope that he's the guy, you know, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, linebackers are not a big value anymore. Like, you got to have good cornerbacks. You got to have good safeties, you know, and you've got to have good tight ends. And
I like Jack Campbell and I like Jameson Williams, but the reality of the situation is you can't pay everyone. You know what I'm saying? That's the reality of the situation.
You can find another Jack. You can find another JMO.
Like, I love JMO. And I think he's going to be great. I'm glad they didn't trade him, because I want him for this year, and I want him for next year as well. But you have to think about the future, and you have to think about a guy that could command $20-30 million, depending on how much he does in the next 2 years.
So the tag is 25 if you tag him.
And you could tag him for a year and get another year out of him. But, I mean, let's be honest. You're going to be at
You give 25 to JMO when you gave 30 to Amon-Ra St. Brown?
No.
Exactly. That's my point.
That's kind of the point. And Holmes talked about this in his pre-draft press conference. He said on wide receiver competition, it's kind of like we talk about with corner. You really can't have enough of them. And obviously, receiver, it's similar. He said, now the only thing about receiver is that I have always felt like a receiver is probably one of the more voluminous positions in each draft. So there's probably more of those guys, even veteran free agents that are available after the draft as well. But yeah, I mean, just to add one, he added two. Just continue to add youth. We're happy with the guys we have, very happy with the guys that we have. But obviously it'd be great to get one.
And he showed that exactly. He goes and gets Tesla, and he goes and gets Lovett. So I mean, you just add to already deep room. Like, you look at Leaf, Patrick, Brown, JMO. Who else am I missing? Ronnie Brown,
Ronnie Bell, and then they got a lot.
You remember at one time that receiving core was weak.
Yeah. And
Brad Holmes quietly has revamped it, you know? Like,
yeah, and you remember when he first started here, remember we got,
oh my God, Leaf was the best receiver we had.
Oh, then it became Josh Reynolds in the middle of the year.
Brown.
And then Amon-Ra St. Brown came along, and it was just like funny, but like I was just laughing because like you come from that to be like, oh, we got too many wide receivers now. It's you never have enough wide receivers.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to watch all those battle out for sure, especially the bottom ones. I mean, I think the top 4 or 5 are locked in, like Patrick, Leaf, Brown, JMO. I think those are all locked in, but it's going to be interesting to watch the other battles, like who's going to play the gunner position, who's going to be in kickoff, because those are going to be the starting ones that are going to make it, the ones that can do kickoffs and the ones that can do gunners. Let me ask you a question real quick, because I asked this in my podcast too. If JMO balls out this year, let's say he has like a 1,500-yard year. Let's say he has over near 100 catches. I'm just being facetious, but we're just throwing it out. And over 10 touchdowns. Do you extend him or do you trade him?
See, that's the question that a lot of people don't want to answer, but it depends on where you are and how close do you think you are to Super Bowl, and who's going to replace him afterwards. Let's give you a hypothetical, okay? Let's say Isaac Tesla becomes like a legitimate number 2 wide receiver, and you think that you can get away with him. Maybe you trade Jameson Williams at that point in time because you know you got the receiver that you believe in, and then because you know you're not going to pay him because you're going to be paying Hutch and all those guys. Maybe you do that, but even then,
you'll get good value because he'll be at the high point of he's on a 1-year contract, literally, because it's a 5th-year option. I think that's the best deal that the Lions can get if he balls out, because he's not going to get $25 million, bud. He's just not. Not when Amon-Ra St. Brown got 30.
No, not here, but he will get $25 million.
Absolutely. Somebody else will pay him, but
someone's going to pay him.
And here's another question I asked about when I said Amon-Ra St. Brown. When we talked about JMO. Do you ever see a situation where JMO will outplay Amon-Ra St. Brown?
No, not at
Exactly.
all.
That's my point. Is that if you feel like he will never outplay Amon-Ra St. Brown, you do not pay him more or as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown. You
I feel
move
like
off
Amon-Ra,
of him, you get some capital, you get whatever you
yeah,
want, and you keep that money for somebody else.
I feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown is just like he is your guy,
Yeah,
and he's
absolutely. He's one of the top guys in the NFL, period.
you know what's interesting about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams? You know how old Jameson Williams is?
23,
24. Do you know how old
24,
Amon-Ra St. Brown is?
25.
25.
It's crazy, right?
So there's not much difference. I mean,
4th round pick, 1st round pick.
and like we were saying with the wide receivers, like the guys they drafted, Dominic Lovett and Isaac Tesla, you got to look at your age of your wide receiver room, because I'll show you this. This is pretty crazy, to be honest. Right now, so this is the wrong one. Right now, if you were to look at the age of your wide receiver room, so the age of your wide receiver room, you got a 24-year-old in Jameson Williams, 23-year-old in Isaac Tesla, 25-year-old in Amon-Ra St. Brown, a 30-year-old in Khalif Raymond. 31 is Tim Patrick. He's an older guy.
Lovett's the young one. He's at 22. Yeah. I thought he was older. Wow.
Lovett's 22. Tom Kennedy's 28. He's the older statesman.
Yeah.
Antoine Green and Ronnie Bell are 25, and they round up the side. But,
don't sleep on Lovett, man. Don't sleep on Lovett. 22 years old, and he's got mad speed, and he likes to go across the middle. This guy could very well make the 53-man roster, because I think he's going to be our kick returner for finally somebody with speed, man. I'm tired of seeing Craig Reynolds back there, dude. That guy's not fast.
Well, the new kick returns rules, you don't really get, but I think a punt return, that would be an interesting one for him, because
that's Leaf spot. But why I say kick return is because the way the wedge is set up now, where they all meet at the middle, you need a guy to hit that hole and go. Craig Reynolds, by the time that hole opens up, Craig Reynolds is not even near that hole. He's not has a kind of burst.
You don't have that speed.
That guy could, or Antoine Green could have that kind of speed.
Don't have that speed at all. And like I look at those guys, and then you look at guys that they have on the tight end roster. I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting to see.
I'm not worried about our receiver, man. As long as we got Amon-Ra St. Brown and he's balling out, he's our number one guy, and you can throw anybody else along with him. Because at the end of the day, when the game's on the line, where number 16 is going. He's throwing Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's first down St. Brown. Like, I don't know if you knew this stat, but you know who led the NFL in first downs?
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yep. And you know who they kind of compared this to DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf had 37 first downs in his last year. You know how many Amon-Ra had?
Was it 200? 100?
108? No, 75. 75 first downs.
What was the stat that I was reading about Amon-Ra he had 187 something, which was like the leader in the league. I forget what it was. I had to look it up, but
out of all his catches last year, 75 of them went for first downs. That was number one in the NFL. That's amazing. And he's not a big dude. He's not athletic. I mean, he's somewhat athletic, but he's not like a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase. But the dude gets first downs. Who cares?
No,
get him first downs, get the touchdowns. Anything with ounds in the name, let's go.
I like the way St. Brown does all his stuff, and I mean he's just a great player. So what it was set? I forget what it was. I'm trying to find it, but it's not really registering or whatever. But anyways, it was set. It was 170 something. I think it was after contact, which was
maybe yards after contact.
Yeah, I think it was yards after contact. So
yeah, it's another thing he does really well too. Yeah, he gets extra yards.
And a lot of
he does it smartly. He gets down. He knows when to not fight for extra yards or get hit hard. For the most part, he gets down in the right places and moves on.
That's what makes Amon-Ra St. Brown good. Now, there's a couple comments we didn't get to. We're going to get to them right now. One guy says, I wish I would have known you went live. So did Nate. Nate would have wished I would have went live. Jason Flores says, Edge, we got pretty good edge players. Just keep them healthy. That's the main.
Who's your starting edge? Who's your starting edge right now in game one?
Well, Zadarius Smith. I think he'll be back for sure.
But take the Darius out of the equation because he's not on the team right now.
I don't know, man. I think maybe a Pascal, maybe a Makai Wingo. Maybe you want to put him out there.
Oh,
I
really?
think,
I would say
yeah.
Mohammed. I think Mohammed's got a
You
really
know,
good chance.
Al Quadine is going to be a good player. I think that he's going to be used a lot this
Bigger
year.
role,
Yeah. He did really, really good last year when
in
we
lesser roles. Exactly. He's
And
gonna
when-
get a pop.
and when we had a garbage ass defensive line because all the injuries started happening, he was our only guy that could get to the quarterback.
Yep.
Pat O'Connor is an interesting name too. Pat O'Connor is
Yeah, I think he falls out of the. I don't think he makes the cut, man. Now that we've got Williams and you still got
Well,
Martin, you still
I'll
got Wingo.
I'll tell you why. I think Martin's gone. You can just
Probably more likely, yeah. I
the
mean,
reason Pat O'Connor is going to be on the team, and I guarantee you this is why he's going to be on the team. He can play defensive end. He can go up the middle and rush the passer. And with a guy like with Lee McNeil off, out for close to Thanksgiving, you're going to need pass rush help from the interior. And
they also have Miles Adams too that they signed in the off.
Miles
in
Adams,
the
that's another guy that was very underrated.
Yeah, that's what I'm
player.
saying. So, how many D tackles are you carrying on the roster?
That's a good point. I didn't even. Man,
There's a lot. There's a lot, buddy. There's a lot.
There is a lot of defensive tackles. So
yeah,
it's just. I mean, I think Broderick Martin. I think his time here is done, and I really felt like this, man. Like I don't know if you felt like this last year, but if there was one time we needed Broderick Martin to actually be a good player, it was then. And
or be ready. Yeah.
He never ever showed up. So
when you pick up guys like Miles Adams off the street, and
so far on the you got Miles Adams, you got Marcus Davenport, that's another guy. You got your guy from Boise State, Ahmad Hassan, and then you got Aiden Hutchinson, Nate Lynn, Broderick Martin, Ali McNeil, Al Quadine Muhammad, Pat O'Connor. These are all the defensive linemen. Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Pascal, DJ Reader.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is if we re-signed Onwuzurike too. So you got Onwuzurike, you got Reader, you got Miles,
Roy Lopez, Makai Wingo, Isaac.
We're just talking D tackles. Like
if you're just
I
talking
put Wingo in there too.
Yeah, if you put D tackles, here's your D tackles. You got Roy Lopez, who will be a defensive.
Oh, Roy, yeah, you got Roy too.
Yeah,
yeah.
You got Makai Wingo, Tyleek Williams. You got DJ Reader. You got Chris Smith. You got Levi Onwuzurike. You could say Pat O'Connor could help you out in defensive tackle too. You got Broderick Martin, Aaliyah McNeil, who will be out for a couple weeks, then probably out to Thanksgiving, to be honest. And then you got a guy like Miles Adams, who he could play defensive end too. So it's interesting.
I think they liked him at tackle, but yeah, I guess he played defensive end too.
He could play both of them for sure. But
it's gonna be a lot of fun battles in training camp. A lot of fun battles.
Who cares about the Rams? Well, we were talking about the Rams and we were talking about the Lions drafting wide receiver Isaac Tesla. So that's kind of where we were going. We all went off on a tangent with the Shedeur Sanders stuff too. Jason says, "Hey, just wonder what happened with Jake Fromm when he played in preseason last year. He was pretty good, looked better than our other backup, and now he's quickly gone." Well, Jake Fromm got released. I think he didn't get released. He got released.
He got released. Yeah. So right now the Lions have only Kyle Allen and Hooker as the backups right now.
I wonder if Brad can call up Cleveland and ask them what they want for Joe Flacco.
You want Joe Flacco as a backup?
Hell yeah, I'll take Joe Flacco as a backup. If Jared Goff ever goes down, and I need someone to help me out, I'm going with Joe Flacco. Like, God forbid you remember what happened in the Commanders game.
Yeah,
like I was scared to effing death that we were gonna put Teddy Bridgewater in a playoff game at Ford Field.
They did.
And they did.
He handed the ball off to J-Mo and he went for a 80-yard pass.
But I'm just saying, like, can you imagine if you're in a position where you're playing the Green Bay Packers or you're playing the Chicago Bears and Jared Goff goes down and you got to turn to Kyle Allen and Hendon Hooker? Like, okay, I like Hendon Hooker. He was Tennessee Volunteer. I told you I watch a lot of Tennessee football, but I'll tell you what, man.
This is why I said the Shedeur Sanders. I get what you're saying with the whole flash in the pan, whatever with his dad. But this is why I was thinking about it, because Goff is 30 or 31. Shedeur's 23. And Shedeur's not going to outplay Jared Goff. We know that for a fact. But he could learn behind Jared Goff. And at some point, when Jared Goff's contract becomes way too expensive and Jared Goff, you're getting diminishing returns on his play, that's when you can put Shedeur into the situation. But that being said, I definitely think the Lions next year will take a quarterback, and it probably will be Jared Goff's replacement at some point.
I think they're gonna have to. It's not that Jared Goff's not a good player. That's not what we're saying.
No.
What we're saying though is for this year, like I look at it like this, man. If you can get Joe Flacco on the roster, you can get someone's giving up a backup
Well, if you
quarterback.
get Joe Flacco, you're trading Hooker. Well, I'll just say that right now. There's no reason in hell you keep Hooker.
Well, what value does Hendon Hooker have? That's the thing. What value does he have? Because if you can't beat out Teddy Bridgewater straight off a state championship win in Florida, what are we talking about?
But Joe, was that more of the organization believing more in Teddy than not believing in Hooker because Hooker was a rookie?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's fair because first off, you got to follow the crumbs. Teddy Bridgewater was with Dan Campbell in New Orleans.
Right.
They have that relationship. They have that feel, that trust with him, and the thing is, if Teddy doesn't go off and try to go coach high school, they probably don't draft Hooker.
I just look at the Kyle Allen quarterback, that they brought in. I think it's a direct testament to where Hendon Hooker is.
That's fair. I agree with you.
I really believe that when they brought in Hendon Hooker, they thought he was going to be a backup quarterback at the very least. Mm-hmm. I didn't think they would envision bringing in Kyle Allen or a veteran backup. Like there was rumors out there that they were interested in Mason Rudolph, and if Mason Rudolph would have not have got the job with the Steelers, he would probably came here. Right. That was one of them. And it's just like, okay, if you're giving that much credence to the backup quarterback, what does that say about Hendon Hooker? Right. I love Hooker. I think he could be a useful player, but geez, Pete,
I think the good thing is too, and I think that Detroit will add a quarterback along the lines before the first game, the Hall of Fame game. Mm-hmm. But if they don't, for whatever reasons, we're going to see a lot of Hooker and we're going to see a lot of Allen in preseason, and that's good. Because we need to see those guys and see what they have because, Jared Goff's not going to touch one snap in preseason. It's going to be all those two dudes.
Yep.
Or three guys if they bring somebody else.
So going back to Jason's point, they released Jake Fromm on April 23rd.
They could probably bring him back still if they wanted to.
And they could probably bring him back too, but, it is what it is. But I don't know, man. This says I think this draft class was a lot better than people are giving it.
I agree.
To be honest. I really just okay. This is what I'll say. Then we'll end the podcast after we'll do a couple segments or whatever. But this is what I want to ask you. Give me your 3 top picks in this draft.
3 top picks? Okay. Yeah. Williams is number 1.
I think Tyleek's going to be my number 1 too. But
I think he's probably your closest plug and play starter game 1. I think if he I was asking this too, like, do you see game 1 either because we know Mac's not going to be there. Dan's already said that. I think Brad's already said that too. So who is going to start opposite of Reeder? Is it going to be Levi, which I think Levi more so because Levi's a 3 tech and he had a good high pressure rate. And I think that now that he's got a new contract, we want to see more from Levi. Or is it going to be Williams, which Williams is more like Reeder. I don't know if you don't have anybody to get pressure on the quarterback. They're more big guys and run stuffers. So I think Levi probably will be the starter. But if Levi gets hurt, then it's Williams.
Mm-hmm.
So Williams 1, Hussein 2. I like this guy a lot. I think working with Aiden, he's got a high motor. He's going to learn so much from this guy. And I think they're going to be a nice tandem when he figures it out.
Yep.
And then Tesla. I think Tesla is going to be better than people expect early on in this year because when they see the guy's speed and they see the guy's high point catch ability, Jared Goff's going to fall in love with this guy. And I love Tim Patrick. I love what Tim Patrick brought to the team last year. I don't know if he can duplicate that this year. I just don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with all your guys. I think they're really good. But if I'm going to start, I'll start with Tyleek Williams. I love Tyleek Williams from this standpoint. Again, he was not asked to be a pass rusher at Ohio State. That's just not their scheme. Yeah. But he did have a 6.6 pass rusher win rate. He did get
he's disruptive, man. He gets in the backfield. Very disruptive.
This is what people don't get about Tyleek Williams. I said it on my podcast video. You remember that? I
Mhm.
said, with Tyreek Williams, you can't judge him by pass rush because the defensive tackles at Ohio State are not asked to rush the passer. Their job as the defensive tackle is to free up JT, Tulamalo, and they're to free up Jack Sawyer, and they've always been that way. The defensive
Mhm.
tackles at Ohio State, and they're good. They're good players. And Tyreek Williams, the one thing I like about Tyreek Williams, very good in the run defense. So good
Oh
luck.
yeah, really
Good
good,
luck,
really
good
good.
luck trying to rush against the Detroit Lions. And here's the thing: when you look at the teams that you're going to have to potentially face in the playoffs,
Eagles,
the Eagles,
Rams.
you're gonna have to play the Rams. They
Mhm.
got Kyron Williams and Kyron
Commanders.
Williams. Yeah, Commanders,
Mhm.
Falcons. I would say the Falcons too. And I liked the pick that the Commanders got, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt from Arizona. He's kind of a scat back kind of guy, but
Yeah.
he's a interesting player because he's 5'11" and 2'8", and
Also too, to add to Williams, real quick, like if you look at his best games, they were against Texas, they
mhm.
were against Oregon, they were in the national championship against Notre Dame. Like he balled out in some of the best games, and that's what you want to see in a guy like that. That's why he won in the first round, because
Yeah.
Buffalo was going to take him.
Oh,
Like,
for sure. That's what I said. Then people were like, "Oh, you didn't know that." I was like, "Yeah, he just said it." So there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Bears pick up Kyle Mungai, and I love this kid from Rutgers. He's always been a very good player, and they revamped their offensive line, so you're gonna have to stop the Bears. I mean,
Sure.
and then you look at the Vikings.
Yeah.
The Vikings, they got Aaron Jones, and they always can rush the
Mhm.
ball. I mean, I really think they could have done good if they would have drafted a running back, but they didn't.
And if this guy's comp is Aleem McNeil, I'm okay with that because I like Aleem McNeil. I think Aleem McNeil was really coming into his own until he got hurt.
Mhm.
And if you got two Aleem McNeils on the team, dang,
I'll take it. That's exactly what I said.
I'll take it too. Exactly.
I'll take it. And the Rams, they again, they're a team that I love what they drafted. Jacquizz Hunter.
Yeah, their D
Hunter
line, their
from-
D line is sick, man.
They have
And
a
they
great,
added Josiah Stewart too.
and they added my favorite guy of the whole draft in the 7th round, the wide receiver from Pittsburgh. His name is Konata Mumfield. He had 813 yards, 15.6 yards per reception at Pitt. And he had a contested catch rate of 60%. So he could go up and get that ball. And he's a 6'1", 185 guy, and he's a dog. But I love what
Watch out for the Rams, man. The Rams are going to be a team to watch this year.
they loaded up a lot. I like their Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson. That's another guy, but he's not really a guy that's
He's a big body guy. He's not a speedster by any means.
His contested catch rate is like 25%. That's pretty bad for a tight end. So that is what it is. But yeah, I look around at the teams that the Detroit Lions are going to play, like the Falcons, like the Commanders.
You better stop the run, man. It's as simple as that. The Lions pride themselves on stopping the run, and you get a guy like Williams who can be a disruptive inside. I don't know if you heard about this, but the Ohio State D-line coach compared Aaron Donald's ability to Tyreek Williams and the way he gets off and the way he's disruptive. And I can kind of see a little bit of that because when you watch Aaron Donald, one of the best things about him is that he is disruptive inside and he blows up things in the backfield. You saw that from Williams. So, hey, if he's half of Aaron Donald, man, Brad Holmes killed it.
All right, so here it is. This is scheduled for next year, and you got the Chargers, which are Marion Hampton. I love that pick. That's gonna be a good one. So these are the teams. That's the preseason game. So you're gonna get to see him. But like you look at these guys, like you're gonna play the Commanders. They got some good players that can run the ball. Saquon Barkley, you're gonna play Saquon Barkley next year. Kyron Williams, you're gonna play Pacheco. You're gonna play the kid. You're gonna play Najee Harris and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Running teams, man. A lot of running teams there.
Nick Chubb. You're gonna play. God, there's so many good running backs that you're gonna play. Even Baltimore. Like you play Baltimore, you gotta play Derrick Henry and all those guys. So and Lamar Jackson. So that's why I said the edge is big. But going back to what I was saying about the ranking the guys. So my top 3 are Tyreek Williams, number 1. Number 2 is Miles Frazier. I think you got extreme value there. I think he's going to be a potential starter. And I love what Brad Holmes said, that he's going to get those guys involved in being a backup center. If that could be your potential Frank Ragnow replacement, Holy shit, man. That could be really, really great for the Detroit Lions.
Let me throw something out real quick to you. I think that Mahogany is probably going to be one of your starters for sure because he's got the live game reps and he would have been a starter last year. So he's one of them. And these other guys only played right guard. So the thing is that I think that they move Graham. They keep Graham unless they want to cut Graham. They keep Graham and they make him Frank's backup in case something happens with Frank as a center spot. And then they either put Tate or Miles in that other spot.
Well, the way I suggested is so if I feel better if Graham Glasgow moves over to the other position because I think last year he was in the wrong position. So I think you're going to have a three-way battle for the right guard position of Ratledge, Frazier, and Mahogany, and whoever is the best is going to be the best.
Yeah.
That way you could have the other guy be like, okay, whoever's best at center, he can fill in with Frank Ragnow or Glasgow can. And then if there is an issue with Frank Ragnow and you got to move one of those guys in, you could move him to the other guard and kind of get them split reps. So that's pretty good. But I look at these two guys. These are my 2 and 3. Tate Ratledge is my 3rd. But I look at the way that they play, man. You know as well as I do, when you play in the SEC and you only give up 1 sack a year, I mean, how many
guys against pro competition?
How many guys are you going against that are like legitimately like pro football players? I mean, Georgia last year, I think that Georgia was playing. They played Ole Miss and all in Tennessee, and if I go back to it, so Tate Ratledge played against Clemson. He played against Kentucky, who had good players on that. He had especially Deion. Their big defensive tackle.
Yeah.
They did play against Florida. They played against Ole Miss. They played against Tennessee. They played against Texas and Notre Dame. And then you look at LSU. Who did LSU play? I mean, there's no hiding for these guys. They played USC. They played South Carolina. They played UCLA. They played Ole Miss, Arkansas.
And another thing to add to that, dude, is that like literally the draft had over 79 guys from the SEC. That's a record for a conference.
And Big Ten showed out too. So I look at it like this. We got guys from the Big Ten, SEC. We got one from the Mountain West, but the rest are SEC and Big Ten picks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Brad said that like those are the pro leagues. Those are the ones that are spitting out the pro players. Ohio State had 14 guys in the first round. I mean, in the draft. So
yeah, and look, it was a down year for them too in terms of they didn't beat Michigan, all that jazz, but they got to play. They got to play Michigan, and they beat.
Yeah,
they won.
They're a pro franchise. They spit out pro players.
And it was funny because the Twitter account for the Lions. I don't know if you've seen this, but this was funny as hell. It was I'm pulling it up right now. Did we just become best friends with the Georgia logo and the Lions logo? And it's funny because I hit
outside of the Eagles. We took more than Georgia players than the Eagles did.
I hit on this before, but like the Lions loved Alabama players. I think they'll start loving Georgia players more. And it's because of the coach. The coach is great. The Kirby Smart's a phenomenal head coach, and he coaches a damn good program. And when you go to Georgia, you're not going there to major in being a sports medical guy or something like that. You're there to go play football, and that's exactly what the Georgia Bulldogs do. And they're a great watch too. They got a lot of good players coming up in the.
Yeah, I would bet my life savings that Brad takes an SEC player every year.
Oh, for sure. SEC and Big Ten,
regardless of position, and probably Big Ten too, because they're up there in the Big Ten. That's Big Ten country up there for sure.
So you got Saban and Kirby Smart that have played a complete 180 into changing this Detroit Lions team. I mean, look at Jambo and Jahmyr Gibbs and Brian Branch and all those guys. So it's great to see. But it's been a great podcast, man. I appreciate you coming on. Sorry,
man. Thank you. Thank you for.
Sorry, I didn't invite you earlier, but hey, guys, if you missed any part of the podcast, you can go on Detroit Lions News podcast, and I don't have the thing up right now, but you can go watch there. I'll post it on Twitter. You can listen to it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and then we'll have another podcast coming up soon. I wasn't able to do consistent podcasts because we're moving into a new house. So
shout out.
So I got all this. I'm like hodgepodge in this podcast studio together, kind of thing. And I've been busy, but we're gonna go into Lions training camp earlier than expected, so that's something to go by. And I think in the next couple of weeks we're gonna break down the positional guys in each position and see who makes the cut, who doesn't make the cut, and all that jazz. So we'll see you guys on the next podcast. Obviously, we got the schedule release happening. Was it May 14th? That's what I thought it was. May 14th, which is a Wednesday. So we'll definitely have a podcast after that.
Sweet.
And we will see you in the next podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football here on the Detroit Lions News Podcast. Thanks, Nate, for joining me.
Yeah,
and
man.
Thanks everybody for watching out there. And we will see you in the next podcast. Talk more Detroit Lions News football here on the Detroit Lions News Podcast. And see you.